And here we are, free-falling again, because the CEO obviously did not want to humor Miguel's conversation. Though, to be fair, he probably heard that warning several times at this point. Probably actually from Black Cat herself before that unfortunate incident happened with the anti-aging drug. If that did happen, it just makes it all the more clear that the CEO isn't going to listen, and there is no reasoning at this point. I mean, as he said himself, he does hold all the power in this situation, and he feels it is his responsibility to use it to make things right. Though it seems like everybody is having a little bit of trouble agreeing on what's right now. I mean, even Spidey and Miguel are having little squabbles here and there that may be hinting at something more problematic. Hopefully they get that sorted out before it turns into something ugly. After all, the last thing we need is our two heroes falling apart while everything else is falling apart around them.
No way it ends here. The CEO and I have some unfinished business. This thing has a gravity reversal system to separate out precious metals. I can use that to get the shock back up there.
Miguel sounds incredibly pissed with the CEO right now.
Excellent. Oh, not excellent. I'm gonna have to reroute more power and overload it to get the upward boost I need. There must be some reserve power banks around here somewhere. I can climb the debris to get higher.
Of course, their little talk together probably just reaffirmed what is important in Miguel's mind, and increased his fierce determination, let's say. I mean, now that he knows what the CEO is actually up to, he's going to let even less get in his way than before, if that's even possible. I have absolutely no doubt that Miguel is physically capable of taking out the CEO, but the CEO isn't really the only problem here. It's time. If Miguel doesn't reach the CEO fast enough, it doesn't matter how strong he is. And there's also the matter of Atrocity. I mean, Miguel tore right through Anti-Venom, but Atrocity, he doesn't look like he'd go down quite as easily. We can at least take comfort in the fact that if things somehow go as planned, Miguel will be the one fighting the CEO instead of Peter. That will be significantly less messy, I imagine. And again, all of Peter's loved ones are out of harm's way, so all we really have to worry about right now is reaching the top before the CEO finishes his leisurely stroll toward the control panel. I imagine the whole gravity reversing thing we're doing right here is a pretty good step toward that. That is, if it doesn't kill us. I mean, thank goodness the CEO didn't harvest this room's power into some kind of gravity ray. Maybe the next game can be about gravity.
Okay, that's a start, but it's gonna take more power to make it affect non-metal objects like me.
We really have no idea what Peter's up to right now. I mean, when we last left him, he was knocking out Atrocity so we could get its DNA, but then what? He could just be running from Atrocity right now, but maybe Atrocity's still asleep. That would leave Peter with very few places to go, except perhaps the Gateway Room.
I could web zip on the debris to get higher.
I mean, it'd be quite a good thing if he actually managed to get to the Gateway Room before Miguel. You know, be ready for once.
I gotta get down to the first floor to trigger another disposal cycle.
Because we know Peter's not just going to hang around doing nothing. Hopefully he hasn't gone back to poking around in the archives, because we definitely don't need any more of that. Luckily, there's really no challenge at this point that Miguel can't handle. Unless we run into, like, an even...
I gotta get down to the first floor to trigger another disposal cycle.
No, Miguel, we have another switch to flip. But as I was saying, unless we run into an even larger number of failed experiments somehow, I imagine Miguel will be just fine on his way to the CEO. I mean, aside from the impending destruction of the universe, this is not the worst situation.
I gotta get down to the first floor to trigger another
Miguel, we have another switch to flip. But yes, as I was saying, we have to stop all this before the supposed impending destruction of the universe. That is, if Miguel is right, and if Miguel is wrong, then is the CEO really doing anything that terrible? I mean, it's not impossible to see Peter agreeing with his... Miguel, we have another switch to flip. I mean, it's not that hard to see Peter agreeing with his future self after all of this on some level. Whether the CEO is really a villain here, I guess is up to your own perspective on things.
I gotta get down to the first floor to trigger another disposal cycle.
So if the CEO does get his way, if he does get to reform reality in his image, he promises he'll save lives, but in the process he'll also technically be erasing lives that were already there. Regardless of whether people share the same names, they will be different people with different experiences.
Alright, now to trigger a disposal cycle that'll reverse the gravity and get me up to the next level.
I guess depending on what kind of person you are, the CEO could be committing some kind of horrendous genocide, or he could be literally saving the entire world. There are more than a few shades of gray in between there, but this is a game about contrasts after all. If the CEO's methods were somehow proven safe, there's no real proof that either Spider-Man wouldn't try and do the exact same thing. I imagine this is weighing much more heavily on Peter than it is Miguel, because Miguel knows for himself that what the CEO is doing right now is dangerous. But Peter had to listen to himself explain the CEO's motivations, his own future self. Miguel is able to look at things from a more objective perspective, but Peter isn't so lucky. If some sort of incredibly horrible thing were to happen to him, would it change him into the CEO? Obviously not exactly the same person, but is Peter really just waiting to change into someone like that? I imagine he is trying very hard to push away uncomfortable thoughts like these. And again, it's not as though Miguel is going to offer him sympathy, because Miguel has a one-track mind. He is focused on the end, not Peter's personal torment.
That should do it. Now to activate a cycle and go for a ride. Alright, now to trigger a disposal cycle that'll reverse the gravity and get me to the next level. It'll be the last I ever have. Okay, you raving megalomaniac! Here I come! Get ready for round 2!
Again, we can hear in Miguel's voice that he knows what he's doing. He knows where he's headed, and he knows he has to stop the CEO. There is no doubt for him. And Peter's held together this far. If he can just stick to it until the end, maybe with both of them, things will actually turn out alright. We've held together hope this long, why stop now? Unfortunately, it looks like I was wrong, and we do have an army waiting for us as we return. Miguel's dealt with these guys before, but if they keep coming and keep coming, it might be a serious hindrance. They might even severely injure him. I mean, he's not invincible. It's a fair bet that this was also the CEO's doing to keep Miguel out of his hair, and it might just work. We might be down here for a while. And although this is really, really fun, we have more important things to deal with.
Forces here! The Alchemax of your time should have a failed experiment lab! If you can destroy it, the quantum causality should wipe out any trace of these experimental freaks!
I'm right near the failed experiments lab, Miguel. Don't worry, I'm all over this.
Miguel's still sounding angrier and angrier, though this is hardly the time for sentiments, and I don't blame him. Hopefully we can trust his determination not to push him overboard.
Peter, these failed freaks are piling on! You sure you can do this?
I'm almost to the lab. Piece of cake.
This is no time for pastries!
Thankfully, this time Peter was already ready to come to the rescue, as it were.
Okay, I took out a bunch of them. Any improvement on your end?
Some, yeah. Keep it going.
No problem.
Destroying Alchemax property will have lethal consequences.
It is actually a little nice to hear a voice over the speakers that is not threatening to kill us in a more personal fashion.
How's it going? You know, the usual. I'll get a move on destroying these pods.
Peter really wasn't kidding when he said he was all over this one. It's only a couple more until Miguel is free.
All better now? I'll take that as a no.
And here we can see reality really being torn apart like Miguel was talking about.
Fantastic. I'll take it from here.
Good, because I got my own problems.
So although Miguel is safe, we now have our own problems to worry about, and this seems like an appropriate time for Spidey's final move. We just got him the Web Cyclone, which, if used at just the right time, can absolutely devastate enemies. Yes, exactly like that.
The atrocity's back!
Get him to the gateway room!
You got it. That's where it began, that's where we'll end it.
We're thinking alike!
Took long enough.
So it seems that Spidey, in the end, is inevitably going to be forced into a direct confrontation with Atrocity. We have to wonder whether he's actually going to be strong enough to beat him. I mean, he couldn't handle anti-venom.
Miguel, I'm in the Time Research Lab.
It's probably in lockdown mode!
Yep, that would be the old Parker luck.
If the situation were less dire, I can imagine this being a good opportunity to screw up the operations here, but Peter does have Atrocity chasing him, and the CEO is about to end all of existence. It really is time to just focus on the big picture.
Yep, locked. Perfect. Need a passkey if I'm gonna get through that door to the gateway. Hey, hall monitor, give me a pass! Oh, you gotta be kidding. Now I gotta what, go in after him? I think I found some sort of prototype, but non-working model. The guards are real enough. Miguel, any chance that prototype is functional?
How the shock would I know?
Well, you're Mr. Future Knowledge and everything. I figured maybe you'd know why a guy just disappeared into it with the pass I need, no less.
Disappeared? It might be another operational gateway, or it might be a simple matter transmitter device.
Simple? A toaster is simple. A matter transmitter's a little more complicated.
If you say so, what's a toaster?
What's a Oh, never mind.
I'm glad in the future we have moved past the need for toasters, and Spidey here tried to walk right through that clear glass window. Don't pretend you haven't done that before. We all have. If this indeed is another gateway, then things have just gotten a lot more complicated, but let's just jump right into it anyway. What's the worst that could happen?
Miguel? You still there?
No, I'm in Venezuela.
You were right. It was a teleporter.
How do you know?
'Cause I teleported.
Of all the... Why did you risk it?
I needed the guard's pass.
Well, get it and stop screwing around. Head to the gateway room, and try not to teleport yourself to Mars while you're at it.
You really need to work on your people skills.
In spite of this room looking nearly identical, we have no real idea where it is. It could be in the same facility, and it could be miles off in an underground bunker somewhere. But let's try not to think about that, and instead just hope we can return safely.
I hope this sends me back where I came from.
I know we haven't exactly talked about the gameplay a lot, but I'm sure you've noticed that they keep giving Spidey big areas to swing around in. And they've also started pushing Miguel's accelerated decoy to its limit back there. They managed to explore the game design from a whole lot of directions and still keep it accessible to as many people as possible. Which is only a very good thing. Keeping that in mind, the best is still yet to come, but we're getting there. I think the contrast between Peter and Miguel tends to get stronger as the game goes on, as does the contrast between their play styles. I mean, surely you've noticed in the last few chapters specifically how different they play, despite them having a very similar control scheme. And I could also not be happier with the fact that the way they control directly represents their personalities and ideals. If things have seemed relatively calm in this chapter despite my commentary, well, you know what they say about the calm before the storm. There's a big storm coming.
Oh, crap. The baby's awake. Miguel, I'm heading to the gateway room and Junior's right on my tail!
Keep moving! I have to head off the CEO before he starts draining quantum energy, or who knows what could happen. All right, here it is. The CEO's tower. I'm coming for you, boss.